Hey there, good afternoon. I'm digital anchor Brandi Smith. The federal mask mandate that was set to expire yesterday, but which the White House sought to extend until May 3rd, has been voided by a federal judge. That decision came down last night, and today we are seeing the impacts of that. Lots of different organizations, companies, agencies making changes to their mask policy as a result. So here's what we know. The judge voided that mandate last night. The White House has not said whether it will challenge that, whether it will ask for a stay. That hasn't happened at this point. But we do know that the TSA has come out and said it will not enforce the directive at airports. So airports and airlines can now set their own rules. The question is, what are the rules for some of these airlines? All of those listed here: Alaska, Allegiant, American, Delta, Frontier, Hawaiian, JetBlue, Southwest, Spirit, and United say they will no longer enforce a mask mandate. You are welcome to wear a mask, and they're actually recommended by many of these airlines, but they're not going to be required for you to board a flight. A lot of passengers who were in the sky when this announcement came down got to remove their masks mid-flight.
And I just checked with the company, and the company position is, the Delta position is, masks will be optional this evening for all crew and passengers as well. So it is cause to celebrate, but for those who want to wear masks, please feel free to, but it is optional, and that way we can alleviate any stress and discomfort. Thank you very much.
So that flight was going between New York and San Francisco. They got word right there. You heard some clapping, some cheering. Again, personal choice. According to Bush and Hobby, masks are no longer required at Houston area airports. You do need to check with your airline for guidelines, though, because I listed the major airlines, but international flights could be a complicating factor. So if you're headed to a country where masks are required for travel, you're just going to have to keep tabs on that. We sent Xavier Walton up to Bush to talk to folks and get their reaction to this change.
As planes here at Bush take off, some travelers are doing the same with their masks.
2 years too long. We ready to unmask.
Monday, after a federal judge in Florida declared the federal mask mandate on planes and public transportation unlawful, the White House issued a statement saying TSA will no longer enforce the mask mandate.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a relief because those masks hurt.
This family found out before boarding.
Yeah, I didn't believe it was real. I didn't think it was real at all because, people post crazy stuff all the time.
The news reaching 30,000 feet. One person tweeting, on a flight, pilot made an announcement about the mandate being overturned. Flight attendants just pulled off their masks. United, American, Southwest, and a number of airlines are lifting mask requirements immediately. In Houston, Elizabeth Logan tweeting on the tarmac this unmasked selfie, saying even the crew is maskless. Everyone seems so happy as well.
I really didn't have a problem with it because, a lot of people are vaccinating now. So I thought, the COVID cases were down, so I don't think it's a problem.
Nonetheless, some still erring on the side of caution.
I think it's a risky decision,
Ruth, ready for takeoff, but to keep her mask on.
Because we already so close on the flights, it's kind of like, I would rather wear a mask because I don't know these people.
Even knowing you don't have to, you're still choosing to wear the mask.
Yeah, just for safety reasons. I'm a family woman, so I'm around my grandparents and things like that, so just out of respect for them.
Uber came out with a statement last night saying you can now ride without a mask and use the front seat if you need to. While mask usage is still recommended, we've updated our COVID safety policies. Uber's statement, let's move forward safely together. That was for U.S. riders only. So we had to wait until today to get a similar statement from Lyft, which said updates to our COVID guidelines. Masks are optional in the car. Riders can sit in the front seat. Open windows no longer required. Comfort levels may vary, so we encourage those who wish to continue wearing a mask to do so. Metro also released a statement saying, given yesterday's court ruling on the federal mask mandate and the TSA decision to no longer enforce the mandate, Metro is in the process of removing all signage and messaging requiring masks on our system. We anticipate it will take 24 to 48 hours to remove the bulk of that messaging on our system, but operators and Metro PD officers are being instructed to no longer require masks, effective immediately. We're also going to move away from requiring masks for Metro employees. They will continue to have the option to wear a mask. And then one more mass transit example, Amtrak. Amtrak is no longer requiring passengers and employees to wear masks while on board trains or in stations, but masks are welcome, Amtrak says, and remain an important preventative measure against COVID-19. Anyone needing or choosing to wear one is encouraged to do so. And I think that's the focal point here that shouldn't be lost. Masks are not banned, but the mandate has been voided. Lots of comments flowing in on our Facebook stream right now. When we asked whether you'll continue to wear a mask. I know I am flying on Thursday, and I think I would choose to wear a mask. Only, I say this, I'm vaxxed, boosted, I've had COVID. The colds that I have gotten since everything kind of opened back up. It hasn't necessarily been COVID, but I had a friend for the longest time, long before COVID, this is like 15 years ago, who always wore masks on planes, and we'd always poke fun at him, but you know what? Steven was never sick. And I can't help but think, as good as the airflow is on those airplanes anywhere, you're in with folks like that. I know masks are mostly to protect others from yourself, but still, it's not really too much of a bother to me. It is reassuring from my personal experience, knowing that I can take it off without fear of repercussions on a flight because they were mandatory for so long. Sometimes it's nice to just breathe without one. So many comments. Nick says, no, he's not wearing them. Crystal says, no masks, please. Larry says, no. Adam says, I never wore one anyway. Don't need permission not to, never will. Lynn says, nope. Sylvia says, yes, I will be masking up indefinitely until I feel comfortable. Melba says, yes, she'll continue wearing them. Barbara says, no. Randy says, no. Pecora says, I'll never wear one. Teresia says, it's a personal choice, but I will still mask up. And yeah, it is a personal choice. I think at this point, seeing most people around Houston, not very many people are masking up. I feel like airports were sort of the last spot where I was still seeing folks in masks. And even then, in the airport themselves, walking through, you didn't really see folks masked up. It wasn't until they were hopping on the plane that I saw it. So I'm going to scroll ahead. Glenda says individual preference. Beth says, glad I have the choice. And that's a sticking point for a lot of people. The folks who didn't feel comfortable in the crowds can still have that choice. David says most Ubers don't make us wear masks as it is. Just got back from vacation and would turn a ride away if they required it. Interestingly, David, I just heard a story from a coworker from this past week. They were in Washington, D.C., couldn't, it's sort of an emergency trip to a pharmacy, didn't have a mask on hand, and the Uber driver left them because they didn't have a mask on. Although, by comparison, last night, just after this announcement came down, but before Lyft had officially changed its policy, I took a Lyft from home down to Minute Maid Park for the Astros home opener, and my driver, the first driver I've seen who didn't have a mask on, I asked him if it was okay if I didn't wear mine. We had the windows down and everything, but yeah, it was totally cool. Now Lyft has since changed its policy and said masks are no longer required. Jen says she's wearing a mask now. Amy says, so happy for the flight attendants not having to enforce that. That has been a huge element of contention for 2 years, for more than 2 years now. The number of airline passengers who have been removed, punished, banned, and the flight attendants who've had to deal with unruly behavior. Again, remember, these flight attendants are not the ones making the rules. They were just the ones enforcing the policy that everyone agreed to when we bought tickets. Whether you subscribed to the mask mandate or not, it's something you agreed to when you bought those airline tickets. So it was, I think probably a hard couple years for flight attendants who just didn't even want to deal with that. Now they don't have to. Scrolling back through. Grace says, I will continue to wear my mask. Charlene says, I never did and won't. Yeah, Carlene's kind of in the same boat with me. She says, I will because cold, flu, and other germs. I just think we have a different, we've always known about colds, right? We've always known about the flu. We always perked up when we heard our coworkers sneeze or cough not far from us. I think we have a different understanding now because of the past 2 years about how colds, germs, viruses spread, and we have more tools now. I liked to think that I was always very hygienic and wash my hands, but I definitely use more hand sanitizer than I ever have before. I'm not so sad that we're not hugging strangers. I've never been a big hugger except with people I know, but that's one thing that's sort of gone away. Handshakes, I've seen fewer, those are coming back, but I like the fist bump because then I'm so socially awkward. I never knew when we were having an interaction, are we hugging or handshaking? Are we handshaking? What kind of handshake? I like that we can just wave or elbow bump or fist bump. Those are all become socially acceptable forms of a hello. Sue Ann's asking about the airports in Mexico. I don't know. That wouldn't be affected by our federal mask mandate. So if you are flying internationally, actually both airports, Hobby and Bush recommended, if you're flying at all, check with the airline to see what the policy is. And if you're flying internationally, check with the destination to see what mask mandates are out there. It's not a bad idea to just have one on hand in case you need one if you're in one of those situations. Oh, interesting. David said, I used to have bad allergies when I started my outdoors job years ago. It was rough. Now, having been subject to everything, I hardly have any allergies to deal with now. Gigi says, it's a personal choice. I choose to wear mine. I have newborn grandbabies. If you choose not to wear a mask, that's your choice. And I think the most important thing here, and someone mentioned it, I accidentally scrolled through and it blipped through. The way the live chat works is some disappear. It is a choice. It's your choice. It's your neighbor's choice. And at this point, nobody needs to make the other feel bad about their choice. I mean, if you are inviting folks over to your house, if you're planning something and you are asking that folks wear a mask, that's one thing. But someone said something about a grocery store. We don't need to be finger pointing, that kind of thing. Lana just brought up a good point. Cruise ships. Let's see what they're doing. I didn't even think about that. Now, it could be complicated. I'm not seeing anything. Let's see, Royal Caribbean. I just looked at Carnival. Royal Caribbean hasn't said anything either. The challenge there could be like the international flights, depending on the countries your cruise is visiting, could have different rules. So, and the cruise lines could have different agreements with those countries. So if you have a cruise coming up, double check. I'm not seeing anything from Royal Caribbean. Let me just double check the actual website, because you'd think they'd have that front and center. Oh, Royal Caribbean says masks are fully optional for vaccinated guests. But we are also, I want to note, seeing policies coming out by the hour. Again, when I woke up this morning, Uber had lifted its mask mandate, but Lyft had not. That has since changed. Metro has issued its policy because it was waiting for guidance from the federal government, from the TSA. So things could change in the next few days too, as different agencies, organizations, companies get some directive. Allie says, sure won't be eating birthday cake when someone blew their candles out. I mean, right? It changed our perspective, I think, on a lot of things. Ooh, Lemek asks if New York City still requires proof of vaccination before entering restaurants and hotels. That wouldn't be related to the federal mandate. Applied to airplanes, airports, taxis, and other mass transit. So the individual cities that have passed these mandates, different entirely. It updated again, so I just lost it. I just lost that comment. I mean, I'm not gonna mention names because I don't want to do that, but someone said they're not gonna wear a mask. Germs have always been here. If people choose to hide behind a mask, that's their choice. It's that kind of language. I think it doesn't do anybody any good. You don't know what kind of health conditions someone might have, or that the health conditions of someone in their family, and using that kind of language, whether it was intentional or not, you're degrading their choice to protect themselves or their family members. We are now in a free choice zone. And we got to get back to being respectful of our neighbors and being kind and thinking about our neighbors. It's just something we seem to have abandoned. In the comments I see, not just related to this, but about so many other issues in our community. The whole do unto others as you'd have done to you. We gotta remember that, folks. Yeah, Danielle hasn't gotten COVID, but her daughter did, so they have masks and hand sanitizer around the house.
Mr. Martin, how you doing? This is Jerry at KHOU.
Yes, I can.
Can I get a mic check from you real quick?
Sure.
Hold on, sorry. I'm like trying to see what this thread is all about.
I'm already rolling. Oops, no, I'm not.
Lana,
No,
free speech, I'm going to need you to look up the First Amendment. Everyone is entitled to free speech. Free speech is referenced as something that the government cannot prosecute. No one is going to prosecute you. I'm just saying, be respectful. And I'd say I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. But if you have a problem with being respectful, that's not my issue. That's probably one you should deal with. Allie says this pandemic has actually made me more humble and more respectful of people and how they choose to live their lives. Shoot. Yeah, Ivis points out different conversation, but sort of related to like the respect and taking care of our neighbors, the road rage. Another conversation entirely. But yeah, I've noticed in the past few years how much worse it's gotten. We've documented it here at KHOU, looking at the numbers. And we don't really know what's driving that. But it's been a rough couple years on the roads. Ruth says, yes, I will wear a mask in any and every crowded interior space, public transportation, churches, malls, grocery stores. I will no longer eat at a restaurant where the food handlers are unmasked. And we have that choice now with the federal mask mandate voided by a federal judge. We don't know what course of action the White House or DOJ will take, but the mandate was set to expire yesterday anyway. The White House had hoped to extend it again for 2 weeks in case you missed the beginning of this, but it was set to expire. White House asked for 2 more weeks to study a new variant, but this federal judge voided it, and now we have all these changes. So I'm just going to recap really quickly before I hop off here. This is what we know, that a judge voided the mandate that required masks to be worn in airplanes, airports, taxis, and other mass transit. This means the TSA will not enforce the directive at any airports or airlines, leaving those airports and airlines to set their own rules. There are a few extra airlines on this list, but the big ones, Alaska, Allegiant, American, Delta, Frontier, Hawaiian, JetBlue, Southwest, Spirit, and United will no longer enforce a mask mandate. They are encouraged, but they are not required. And then I wanted to hop over to Bush, Hobby. The same statement, because run by the same agency, but masks are no longer required at IAH or HOU. Again, I will encourage you, check with your airline if you're going to an international destination. Same thing with cruises, same thing with all of that. We'll have more coverage tonight on the 411, KHOU 11 News at 5, 6, and 10. But if you're looking for any updates between now and then, be sure to check out our Roku and Fire TV apps, or you can always watch us on YouTube and, of course, right here on Facebook. Y'all have a good day.